Hello, I'm Karen Holford. I am the Trans-European Division Director of Women's Ministries, Family Ministries and Children's Ministries, and I'm a qualified family therapist. And I'm going to talk to you now about how to grow loving relationships in a ministerial family, because we're all very busy. I've been married to a pastor for 40 years. We have 3 children who are now adults and 3 grandchildren. And so we've experienced firsthand the challenges of having really good, strong relationships when you're in a ministerial family, and there's so many things pulling you in different directions. So how can we make the most of the time that we have in our families to love in the most efficient way so that they experience our love and through us the love of God as well? Jesus told us that the most important things in life were to love God and to love one another well with all our heart and soul and mind. And this is a really important commandment. First of all, we need to be filled up with God's love and love Him. And then out of that experience, we are then filled up with love to share with other people. And it's in our homes and families that we can practice the principles of love, make sure that our family is functioning really well. And those skills that will grow in that context can then be used in our ministry to benefit other people too. In the beginning, there was completely loving relationships. God was loving Adam and Eve, and through His love, they learned what love meant, and they would love Him back and love one another. And there was a lovely circle of love. And then sin came into the world and messed things up. And we see that once sin comes into the world, people start looking at each other's mistakes, blaming them, focusing on what is wrong. And as we focus on what each other is doing wrong, it pushes us further apart. It doesn't bring us closer together. And so that's a problem. And also when we feel pushed away from each other and not so loved, it interferes with our experience of God's love too. And so our experience with each other and with God is broken through the pattern of trying to point out each other's mistakes and focusing on them rather than on loving each other. And we need to remember that actually it's not necessarily our job to point out each other's mistakes and to deal with their sins. That's God's job. And we can help God by loving each other really well, because when I feel loved well, then I want to do better. I want to grow in that relationship. And it helps me when I'm being loved to feel stronger, to make the changes in my life that God and the Holy Spirit want to work on at that point in time. And often our human timing about when these things need to be fixed is different to God's timing. And we can let God deal with the messy stuff and help create the best context for us to each grow in love with God by helping each other feel loved in our family relationships. When we focus on loving each other and letting God deal with each of our brokenness, then He grows us and changes us in His loving way. And we have that circle of love between God's love and us loving God and others. And of course, it's never going to be perfect in this world. But when we intentionally work on building the love with each other and with God, then our relationships tend to go better. So there are no perfect solutions, but here's some ideas today about how we might be able to do that. One of the ideas is that we should be intentional about having loving interactions with our family members and focus on what does that mean? What does that look like? And how can we be efficient with our time and focus? We don't have much time. All families are busy. But if we know how to love well in the time that we have, then we can strengthen our relationships even when life is challenging, busy, and difficult things are happening. So when we learn these skills at home, then we can share them with our members. Also remember that everything we do in a relationship will either weaken it or strengthen it. So if I do things to show my husband that I love him, that's going to strengthen the relationship. But if I do something and he doesn't feel loved or he feels hurt, that's going to weaken it a bit. And if we don't do anything, it's always going to weaken it. So there is nothing in between. And so we can look and see, when I did that bring us closer? Did that strengthen the relationship? Or when I did that didn't go so well? We felt apart for a while. I could see that they were hurt. I don't want to do that again. And the more caring connections we make with each other, the more we actually lower the conflict and stress in our everyday relationships, which gives us more emotional energy to deal with other things and to bless the family with love, but also not feel that we're carrying a big burden for our family as well when we go and minister to others. So what does love even look like? Because if I just love someone with all of my heart, but I don't put that into action, it doesn't come out in my strength, in my words, and the things that God says, then it doesn't feel like love. It's just there in my heart, and it's just a feeling that's in me, but doesn't come out in any expression. So love is actually about connecting through different ways, and it can come through comforting someone when they're feeling sad. That shows love. Accepting them when they're really messed up. Showing affection and love and kindness to them. Showing them appreciation, saying thank you, giving them focused attention, showing them respect, helping to encourage them, making them feel secure, being valued, being supported. All of these are different dimensions of love, which are important expressions in relationships. And they're actually all ways that Paul or other people in the New Testament said, this is a good way to build a relationship. Do this for one another. And so we can see that the one another's help to strengthen our relationship. When we are feeling cared for by God and by others, and we've created that context that people feel cared for, then in our minds we have a release of oxytocin. The hormone flows through our bodies. And when that's flowing through us and we're feeling loved, we are much more able to listen to one another, to be empathic and show compassion. And when we are doing those things, then we are showing care to the other person. And when we're caring for them and they're experiencing love and compassion, then that helps to stimulate their oxytocin. And they're also more likely to respond to us in a loving way. And that builds a lovely circle of love and affection. It needs to start with someone somewhere. And when we start to do the loving things, it actually creates a good cycle, a spiral of loving interactions. There's an opposite to love, though, and it's not hate, it's loneliness or disconnection. And here are some things that hurt relationships. You'll be familiar with them. When we hurt people or judge them, when we reject them, abuse them, criticize them, ignore them, shame them, discourage them, make them feel afraid, put them down, or abandon them, then that love experience is broken. It's one of those things that pulls us apart, that hurts us, that disconnects us. And sometimes it takes a long time to rebuild that connection, particularly if we hurt someone really badly. Every time we show them love, it's like we make another connection, another thread with them, building up the love connection. And then if we hurt them, it's like we take some scissors and cut through a lot of those good connections. And we may have to start rebuilding them all over again. And it's much harder the next time because the person is hurt, and it takes a long time to build up the trust again. So when we create loneliness and disconnection, we create a distress cycle, because if we don't feel cared for by God and others, it makes us feel stressed. Cortisol and adrenaline are released into our body. And when those hormones are released, they're designed to help us fight or flight or freeze or do something in response to a danger. And when that happens, we can't listen very well to others. It's difficult to show empathy and be compassionate and kind. And so when we're stressed, we're more likely to hurt other people. And when we hurt other people, then we trigger the release of cortisol and adrenaline in their bodies, which makes it harder for them to care for us. And we can create a cycle of distress. So it's important to understand these two cycles and think, where am I on which cycle? And how can I get back to doing something that's on the comforting compassion cycle that builds love, rather than creating a spiral of discontent, distress, not feeling cared for, hurting one another. So what are some of the ways that we can show love for one another, have these healthy connections with one another? Well, one of them is by having focused attention on the other person. Before we can start to love others well, we really need to pay attention to them, to their needs, to what's going on in their life. And Paul says, don't look to your own interest, but look to the interest of others. Focused attention is about looking at each other with love and seeing them through God's eyes, and also listening to them. Here's some earphones to remind us to listen to people really well, because listening is the start of really understanding and learning how to love another person. So when we want to give someone focused attention, it's really important to stop what we're doing, to listen to the stories of their day, give them some eye contact so they know we're really focused on them, we're not just looking at our phone. Summarize what they say to show we really understood and we're really listening. ask some curious questions, because when we do that, we express, I want to know more, I care about you, I want to learn more about what happened there. And just spend time with people, being fully immersed in whatever they want to do, even if it's just 10 minutes playing a game with your child. And when you've had an important conversation, follow up on it, check it, show that you're still remembering it. Focused attention is really important, because when we know someone is paying attention to us and we feel loved, then we are much more likely, much better positioned to respond positively. This is especially important for children. When we give them focused attention and they feel our love, then they settle down, and it's much easier for them to behave better when we do all these different aspects of love. But the first one that they usually need is some attention, that they are special to us, that we are focused on them. The next important thing is acceptance, being loved even when we've messed up. And I have this great eraser that reminds me, Control Z, sometimes we need to do that in our relationships. And Paul says, accept one another as Christ has accepted you, which is, wow, pretty phenomenal, really. And when someone's messed up or been disobedient or disappointed you in some way, it's really hard, but it's good if we can accept them warmly and lovingly and show love first. So I care about you. You're important to me. Okay, this thing has happened. This mess up has happened, but you are special to me and I care. And I'm going to care for you first, and then we'll deal with the mess. The person's well-being is more important than the mistake. And when we see how Jesus related to people like Zacchaeus, the woman at the well, and the woman caught in adultery, he accepted them wholeheartedly. And in that acceptance, they suddenly found the strength, the power to make big changes in their life. If he had criticized them and hurt them, they would have felt lonely, they would have withdrawn, they probably would have rejected him and ignored him. And there was a day when I bumped my husband's car, and I came home and very sheepishly went to tell him, really sorry, darling, but I bumped the back of your car. And fortunately, he'd learned some of this stuff, and I saw him take this deep breath before he spoke. And then he said, are you okay? And I said, yes, I'm okay. And he says, well, that's all that matters. You're far more important than the car. And that really touched my heart. I know it was a big struggle for him, but it really meant a lot to me that in that moment, he accepted me. And we had to drive around with that bumped car for a couple of years because we couldn't fix it. And people probably thought, oh, Bernie's bumped his car. And so he bore my mistake on his ego. And he bore it patiently. Eventually, someone wrote the car off and bumped into the back of us, and we had to start all over again. But his acceptance of me in that moment was so powerful, and he never blamed me or anything for the mistake of bumping his car. We also show love through respect, through honoring one another above ourselves. And I have this magnifying glass, which when I look through it, you're bigger than me, because respect is about this honoring one another above us. Wherever we're at, we can lift the other person up and talk to them, treat them as if they're slightly better than us, because when we do that, we all get lifted up. And if we put them down, we'll all actually get dragged down. It's so vital to lift people up and give them respect. And Jesus did that so often when he met people in difficult realities. So respect is listening as a pastor to your spouse and your children and hearing their stories, putting them first and being there for them. Too often we've heard that, we need to put church members first and our family second. And I can tell you, as a counselor and as a pastoral family, this can hurt really deeply. So invite their ideas and opinions, your spouse and your children. Ask them before making plans that are going to involve them or affect them in some way, and talk things through with them. Speak calmly. Shouting is also quite disrespectful. And this family is yours for life. They are really special. Show that they are more important than your church members. This is vital, and it may go against what we've been taught or even what the members think, but your family is really important. So make sure they feel respected and loved in what you're doing, because it's really difficult for them if they feel that they're at the bottom of your priorities and the bottom of your to-do list. Security is helping people to feel safe from risk, harm, and shame. And I have some keys here with heart on the key ring to remind us that security is a loving thing to do. Perfect love casts out fear, says John. So if we're creating fear in a relationship, any relationship, then we're hurting it. It's not loving. And we need to think, if someone's afraid, what's the most loving thing to do? Many of our fears are actually not based on anything logical. They're based on past experiences. And we may not even know what they are, but our body remembers that past experience. And our body says, whoa, don't do that. The last time you did that, that was dangerous. And some of these things have even happened to us when we were children, and we may not even remember what they are. So be kind to people's fears. Don't say, oh, that's irrational, because fears are felt in the body and not in the mind. And a rational argument why you shouldn't be afraid doesn't always really help. So we help people to feel safe and secure by keeping our promises to them. If you promise to be someone with your kids, keep that promise. Even if someone at church may need something, try and find an elder or someone else to replace you in a situation. Because if we let our children down and break our promises to them for other people, that's deeply hurtful. I've heard so many painful stories of pastors' children and spouses telling me about how much it hurt when they felt that they were abandoned and the spouse was dealing with someone else instead of them. Show commitment and express it to your children, to your spouse. Keep them safe from harm and protect them even from abusive church members. Sometimes, sadly, we have to do that because people can be quite vicious in what they say and do to us. Drive safely. That's one way we give people security too. And my husband's a very good driver, and he drives very safely. I have some visual problems, so for me, what is safe doesn't always feel safe in what I see. And I let my husband know just by squeezing his knee, and we call it the handbrake. So he knows if I'm squeezing his knee that I'm feeling a little afraid here, and could he just go a bit slower? And he knows to respond to my needs, and that's our way of dealing with that situation. So maintain financial security and transparency so that your spouse knows that the finances are all safe and okay. Do things like remember to lock the doors. That's also part of security. Understand and care about their fears. Appreciation. Here's a thank you card to remind us to be appreciative to our spouses and kids. When we thank each other, it's really powerful, and it has an amazing effect on our well-being, their well-being, and the relationship. Something just as simple as saying thank you for doing that can be huge in a relationship. In Philippians, Paul says to them, I thank my God every time I remember you. And I wonder how we can thank God every time we think about our spouse, our children, our family members, and thank God for who they are and their love in our lives. And if we're in a family, one thing we can do fairly simply is just say something appreciative every day to each person in the family. Every time we thank someone, we feel happy and they feel happy. It lifts people's happiness. And interestingly enough, gratitude lowers conflicts in relationships. The more often we say thank you to someone for what they do, the less they feel resentful and just being taken for advantage or being used. And so our gratitude helps to lift them up, show that we appreciate and see what they do. And it's really encouraging. If you haven't done it before bedtime, do it at bedtime as you tuck your kids into bed or send a message to your teenager or getting into bed with your spouse. Just say, thank you so much for doing that today. I really appreciated it. And when they go to bed with some gratitude, it helps them sleep better. It helps protect their mental health in the processing of the events of the day as well. So find fun ways to say thank you. You can use a card or write it in a funny note and put it somewhere. And just find ways to say thank you as often as you can, not just to your family. It also helps in your church context, because the more we show appreciation to the people who do things in our churches, the more motivated and happier they will be. Quite often when I overhear church board meetings on Zoom and things like that, and I hear people being a little more challenging or unhappy, often I think it's because they don't really feel that people are appreciating what they're doing. So saying thank you as often as you can to people in your congregation can be a blessing for their well-being and the spirit in the community. Valuing. Here's a nice big diamond for valuing each other, helping each other to feel special and cherished. And this is a really important thing. How do we help the people that we love know that they are really special to us? And when Jesus was baptized, God said, "You are my son, whom I loved. With you I am well pleased." And Ellen White says that God says this over each of his children. He's saying this to you. You are my son. You are my daughter. I love you. You bring me joy. And we do that for him. Even when we make mistakes, even when we mess up, he loves us and we bring him joy. So how can we share that message with those in our family too? Well, tell family members how special they are to you in simple, fun, and creative ways. I might say to my husband, I'm so glad I'm married to you. I love it that you're my husband, and I enjoy being your wife. Or I might say to my kids, it's amazing being your parent. I'm just so proud of you. I spent some time with my grandson when he was 3, and I decided to try this out. And all through the day, I kept saying, "Leo, you're so special to me. I love spending time with you. This is so much fun." And he was just taking this in. He didn't really know what to say. And at the end of the day, when I was putting him to bed, he said to me, "Grandma, I wish you always lived with us." And I thought that was amazing. I wasn't expecting any response from him. But at 3, because I had valued him throughout the day, when I put him to bed, he was able to value me and say, "I wish you always lived here." That was really a touching moment. And I thought, you know what? If a 3-year-old can do it, then the rest of us can too. So if we have photos of our family or tangible signs that they're special to us on our keyring, on our desk, and when we're there at their stressful moments in life, maybe a stressful meeting, a doctor's appointment, then that's really helpful. They feel that they are special to us, special enough that we will go and spend time with them when they really need us. And also when they have a concert or something big that they're celebrating, be there in those important moments. It says, "You are special to me, and I want to be here to celebrate who you are with you." Kindness is obviously really vital in relationships, and this little buddy is obviously kind. He has nice cuddly arms and a big heart on his chest. And being kind and compassionate to each other is one of the very foundational ways of showing love with each other. So we can do small things that are kind as often as we can for our spouse and our kids. Know how each person likes to be loved. Who likes to have a cup of tea in the morning? Who likes a hug when they wake up? Who needs some encouragement in the day? Who likes you to give them a little present or something when you think about it? Maybe even one tiny chocolate or one little treat. So when we know how each person likes to be loved and we're intentional about it, we can be efficient in the way that we love one another. We can give warm affection the way that they like. We can plan small surprises. And in every encounter, it's not always easy to remember this, but when you're with someone, just try and think, how can I leave them a little more lifted up, a little happier, a little more loved before we end this conversation? And you can do that in your family and also with your church members, because I find that relationships go well when we think, okay, how can I be kind here? What does this person need? How can I lift them up? Then encouragement is building each other up and encouraging one another in their goals in life. So it's not about my goals for them, what I want them to do, but they have their own goals. How can I encourage them towards their goals for learning to drive a car or passing their exams or something like that? And I think of encouragement a bit like this. So if I'm feeling discouraged, my heart is kind of floppy. And when someone encourages me, it's like they give my heart some strength. Or maybe they really encourage me in a big way. And my heart gets bigger and stronger, because encouragement actually means to give heart to someone. And then as we work and work, maybe we get discouraged and maybe the heart will go floppy again. And we can help to blow that up again. And also we can keep going back to God when we feel empty with our heart like this and ask him to blow his love into it so we can be filled up with his love to share with our family, to share with our congregations as well. So we encourage each other by, find out what each other's goals and dreams are to begin with. What are the things they're working towards? Do you know that? And how can you encourage them? Maybe you can learn with them or come alongside them and take some of their responsibilities away for a bit so they have time to work on an essay or do some practice. Invest in their interests and goals with them. Be their cheerleader. I remember when our daughter was learning to play the violin, my husband, who was a pastor then, decided he was going to learn with her. So they would go together to classes and do the exams together. And that togetherness was really encouraging for her. And it gave them some one-on-one time, which is so important in a pastoral family. Comforting. Here I have a nice packet of tissues and a first aid kit for broken hearts and paper cuts, it says. And comfort is being soothed when life is tough and painful. And it happens. Sometimes it's just the everyday difficulties of life, or having a bad day. Sometimes we've lost someone we loved, or we've been disappointed with something that we hoped for that didn't happen, and we feel sad. And Paul says, be sad with those who are sad, mourn with those who mourn. Because when we're sad and someone enters that sadness with us and mourns with us, we don't feel so alone. If someone says, oh, stop crying, or you shouldn't feel like that, or my sad is bigger than your sad, that feels hurtful and disconnecting. But when someone just pauses and is there with us, even if they don't say anything, but they just show they care. Sometimes I've been at such a loss, even as a therapist, I have just wept with people in pain because there didn't seem to be anything else to do. But yet in that weeping with, that mourning with, there was some incredible healing and care that happened in that process. So know what comforts people in your family, because it's different for all of us. Listen to their story with comfort and support. Validate their feelings. That's really important. Even if you don't understand them, validate them. They are their feelings and they are real to them and they are important. And soothe them when they are stressed. Maybe it's hugs, having a chat, playing a game and distracting them, going for a walk somewhere nice, giving them a back rub, making them a cup of tea. Whatever it is that comforts them, do it. When I work with families who are very distressed, we make a comfort menu and we write on there all the different things that we can do to comfort one another that this family likes. And then they can go to that menu and say, you know what, I think I need this today. And can I have that today? Because that would really help me. In our house, we had a big floppy chair. And if we sat in that chair with a certain blanket on us, everyone knew this person needs a bit of comfort today. And one time I said to my son, what do I do that really comforts you when you've had a hard day? He was about 16 and he was actually quite huggy. So I thought he'll say, oh, you know, it's when you give me a hug. And he said, it's when you make me a big mug of hot chocolate and then you put squirty cream on the top and then sprinkles and then a chocolate flake and you give me a chocolate chip cookie. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Now I know what you like. Then next time you have a bad day, I'll do that for you. So it's important to talk about things and find out how each other likes to be comforted when life is rough and tough. Supporting each other is also vital, bearing one another's burdens, helping each other with challenging tasks. And here I've got a tea towel and a heart-shaped scrubber to remind us to help each other. Because when we come alongside each other in the tough jobs of life, then it lowers conflicts, actually, and it's a powerful way to show love. When people are struggling on their own with the tasks of life, they start to feel resentful and unappreciated. But when we help them, it lowers the conflicts, they feel supported, they feel happier, even if we just help them for 5 minutes. So anticipate when they might need a bit of extra help and be ready and willing to be involved. Bernie would come and help me make dinner by setting the table or making a salad, and that would really help me after a busy day. If he would just do that for 5 minutes, then I would feel like I'm not doing this all on my own. And it helps you to be efficient in your care of each other when you just have a few minutes and you intentionally do something you know will help them to feel loved. So do what you can to help each person in the week. Just maybe pause on a Sunday night and say, how can I help each of you this week? What do you most need? And when shall we do it? And it may just be 10 minutes per person, but that will be significant. If you can just do a tiny bit to help each person in the week, they will see that you are supportive of them, and it will be so encouraging and helpful. So I've gone through 10 key ways that we can show love to one another, and you might think, whoa, that's a lot to do, but don't worry. I'm telling you these because these are things that you can do simply in small ways, intentionally, to show your love. Just by saying, would you like a hug? And show affection, or thank you for that meal, it was amazing. So often in just one sentence, we can encourage someone, show some comfort, give them some attention. And when we know how to show them love well and in these small ways that really hit the spot, then we can be more efficient in our love in the family. We can learn about how love works, develop the skills and the language and the noticing to show this kind of attentive love to others. So what I will often do, even outside the home, even in the grocery store, when I'm going through the checkout, I'll think, I wonder what this person needs right now. Maybe they need some encouragement. Maybe they need someone to thank them for what they're doing and to make them feel valued. Maybe I can help them a bit by the way I put my shopping on the belt. And so we can constantly be asking ourselves, what does this person need? How can I be a channel of God's love to them in this specific moment? In many healthy relationships, we try to meet each other's relational needs, particularly as adults, and let other people meet ours. It's not intended to be a one-way road. We both do this for each other, and that's what healthy relationships look like. For children, we're the ones paying attention to their needs, and occasionally they will do something to meet ours, but that's not our focus or our expectation. The more love we give to them when they're little, the more able they will be to show empathy, compassion, and love to others and to us. And the more they will experience God's love through the way that we relate to them. There are 3 danger signs, though, and this can often happen in a ministerial. And this can often happen in a ministerial family too, in not quite the ways you might expect. The 3 danger signs are self-centeredness, self-reliance, and self-condemnation. So self-centeredness is saying my needs are more important than your needs, and saying I'm the most important person here, ministry is the most important. And most people don't do or say this, but the family members might get a message that their needs are not as important as the church members' needs, and your need to meet their needs. So if they perceive that the church members' needs are more important than their needs, they can feel left out. They can feel that the attention is going towards the members and not to them. And then there's self-reliance that says, I don't need your love and care. I'm strong, I'm independent, and you should be like that too. Or there's self-condemnation that says, I would really like some of these nice things, but there's always a church member who needs more than I do. And so I understand that, and I'll just feel guilty if you're nice to me because I know you have to go and help them. But that can create a confusing loneliness in the heart that's quite distressing. When we look at the story of the prodigal son, we can see that this father was amazingly loving. We know the story of how the young man went away from home in a very hurtful context, and he comes back home in a bit of a mess. But the father is aware of the needs of this young man's heart, and he decides he's going to love him every which way so that whatever need he has that hasn't been met, he's going to meet it straight away. So the father is looking down the road. He's paying attention. He sees this young man. He's been waiting and waiting, paying attention to him for a long time. And as soon as he sees him, he runs towards him with a big hug of affection and a message that says, I accept you the way that you are, even though you're smelly and poor and you've hurt me so much, I accept you. And I'm here to comfort you. And those comforting arms comfort the young man who's gone through so much distress and give him encouragement. And he shows respect to this young man. He throws him a party. He gives him some brand new robes. And he shows he values him by putting a ring on his finger, giving him security and appreciation and the support. You're back in this family. You're part of this. I'm here to support you. So these ways that I'm sharing are these 10 good ways to show love in a relationship, to create a strong bond and build relationships are really important. If babies' needs are not met when they're young, all these love needs, then they start to have unhealthy thoughts. They'll think, I'm not important. What's wrong with me? Maybe if I try harder, they will love me. And when this happens, it leads to negative emotions, feeling unworthy, distressed, bitter, hurt, sad. And when that's in the heart, then it tends to make it harder for that child to become obedient, to do well at school. They might have addictions later. They might manipulate. They might bully. They might try perfectionism in an effort for you to love them if they try hard enough. Maybe they'll have eating disorders. And this tends to lead to poorer outcomes in life. So meeting the love needs of a child at the beginning gives them a secure foundation to love God, to love others, to be a healthy human being. when babies have their needs met for affection, comfort, and all the other good things, time, attention, play, etc., then they feel healthy. They think, oh, I am loved, I am special, I can do it. And it empowers them to grow well, to flourish, and to try hard and to persevere, but because they are loved and the love supports them. And this leads to positive emotions. They feel valued, confident, safe, thankful. They're more able to be kind and considerate and generous and strive for excellence. And this leads to a more positive and flourishing life, spiritually, relationally, in every kind of way. So these things are so core to how we learn about ourselves and how we love in a relationship, and how the brain gets shaped by the love that it receives from the caring adults. So as I conclude, how is this information useful? Well, it's quite important to learn what these needs are and recognize and identify your own needs in a situation. If you're feeling kind of grumpy inside, or feeling a bit moody, or something's not quite right, stop and think, which one of these 10 needs do I need right now? Do I need some encouragement, some comfort, some affection? What's going on inside me? And then you can tell someone, you know, darling, I think I really need a hug right now, or I need some support in this difficult task. So find comfortable ways to let people know what you need. Wonder what other people are needing, your spouse, your kids, your church members, and think, when they say that or do that, what are the hints they're giving me about how they need to be loved right now? And so that you can be more efficient in how you show your care for them. And by listening, by learning about the different needs and thinking, what do they need? Then you can hit the spot better with your kindness and your love, or whatever you're doing. And know that every time you meet one of these relational needs that I've described, you are strengthening your relationship with that person. You're building up a bond of love with them, and building something that is stronger and more loving, and giving them also a loving picture of God. So I wonder, what 3 things will you do this week for each of those people in your family? Think about how they like to be loved, what you can do to really appreciate them, or show them affection, or encourage them, whatever it is. 3 things for your spouse. If you have children at home, what 3 things will you do for them? Just try an experiment. Try and do these things as often as you can, or just pick one a week and work on that one, however it works for you. But try it and see. And if at the end of the week you feel that your relationships in your home are stronger and more loving and happier, then you know you're onto a good thing, and do more of it. Keep growing and learning in those areas. And finally, this is my prayer for you from Paul, that your love may abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight from what you've been learning in this seminar, so that you may be able to discern what is best and may be pure and blameless for the day of Christ, filled with the fruit of righteousness that comes through Jesus Christ, to the glory and praise of God. That's from Philippians 1:9-11. Thank you.